One Piece chapter 1014 is out, and even though it's not centered around him, Kaido gives us so much to think about in this chapter. Before we get into it, please feel free to like and subscribe. There will be a poll in the description below for you guys. Go ahead and answer that as well. The cover story this week has my man Law in it, which I absolutely love, and there's a bit of lore around what's happening in this cover story, but I like the fact that it really looks like, for the painting behind him with the tiger, it looks like Law used his fruit to cut up a tiger and stick it to the folding screen. Just because that's how his fruit makes things look whenever he uses it. They have like that stuck effect, like if you remember Kinemon being stuck to Luffy. It kind of gives me that kind of vibe. We start with Luffy immediately descending back into the sea, and we're getting some interesting dialogue from Kaido. First off, he's telling him that just because he had Conqueror Sake and started coding it, that doesn't mean anything. His technique was still whack. It wasn't going anywhere. And I like the fact that Kaido's kind of he's mocking Luffy even though Luffy's unconscious and falling into the ocean. But he also says something that makes me think, is it possible Luffy was trying to use a new move and that's why Kaido's mocking his technique? Because Kaido says that his technique wasn't working, and he says something like Gomu Gomu no and then doesn't finish it. Now that could just be a translation thing, but it kind of gives me that feel that maybe Luffy was getting ready to do something and that new technique he used didn't work. Kaido also says that Luffy couldn't be Joy Boy either, and what does that mean for the lore of the story? Because for one, I've already had the impression that Luffy wasn't going to be Joy Boy, or at the very least the chosen one of kind of the story here. And Kaido saying you could be Joy Boy either, one, it kind of gives credence to that, and two, it means that there were some other candidates for Joy Boy. When you think about where Kaido would have gotten this knowledge, it feels like it's obviously Rocks, his time on Rocks, because Rocks was dealing with the taboo subjects of the world. Rocks was dealing with ancient weapons. Rocks was dealing with Void Century stuff. So he would have this information. And he's had interactions with Roger. Roger is another person who has this knowledge. So I feel like all of this together, Kaido has been absorbing that and using that to frame his future plans, whatever he wants to do. I feel like that also makes me think about maybe Rocks being Joy Boy, maybe Roger being Joy Boy. Now we know that Roger wasn't Joy Boy. We know that Roger was too early, and we know that Rocks died before anything happened with that. So I'm wondering if Kaido is running down his list and saying, okay, so it wasn't him, wasn't you. Who else is Kaido thinking about being Joy Boy? Kaido then has Bao Huang announce his victory throughout Onigashima, and this is a nod to last chapter because he mentioned he didn't take Luffy's head, and now he needs proof to show that Luffy's been defeated. And this is basically his proof. He's having it be announced throughout Onigashima, and he also has the added effect of, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but he shows up within the dome. And I mentioned that he was going to go back and he was going to start seeing things. Even in the last video I made about the tragedy of Wano, I mentioned that Kaido is going to go back into the Skull Dome and he's going to make it very apparent that he's back and he's about to start messing things up. As per usual, we get a few sprinkles of what some other characters are doing in the mix. We have Yamato, who's just clearing through fodder, trying to get to what I would assume to be the rooftop, but who knows now with Luffy being defeated. They also mentioned that Yamato doesn't have the shackles anymore. And for me, this tells me that those shackles were doing something to hold Yamato back, because they say something's wrong, and they're talking about the shackles are gone. Yamato mentions that it means I'm not a prisoner anymore, but there has to be more to the shackles than just a sign of being a prisoner. I really think that those shackles are holding back some kind of Delver power or some kind of raw power, and we're going to see that in the upcoming chapters. Momo is reading Oden's journal and he seems to know something that tells him he cannot afford to die. Now, with the talk of Joy Boy just a few pages ahead, I immediately make the connection that Momo sees something here that's telling him he is the next Joy Boy. He's the next sovereign that the prophecy pretty much talks about. And on top of that, Momo starts hearing voices. Now, this feels like a voice of all things type connection. What he's having it to, I have no idea. It seems like something is resonating with him. I don't know if it's something outside of Onigashima. I don't know if it's something that has to do with the journal, but something is starting to resonate with him. And later on in the chapter, he tells Kinemon that they have to get the word out about something. They have to tell everyone something. They don't finish it, but I'd assume whatever Momo is saying Kinemon has to tell the rest of the Alliance, rest of the people there, has to do with the voice that he's hearing inside of his head. On the live floor, we have Queen and Chopper facing off, which is a fight we were kind of looking at but didn't really think would happen. And to be fair, it's going as expected. Chopper really isn't doing any damage to Queen, he's mostly just throwing his body around, which Queen's a Zoan. He's resilient. It's not like Big Mom throwing him around, it's just Chopper. But we do get a flashback of Chopper and Caesar, of all people, working on the Rumble Ball to make it more effective. Now, I love this because we know that Chopper hated Caesar, but we know that Chopper is doing whatever he can to be as useful to his crew. So him swallowing that hate in order to gain some knowledge, to gain some learning experience, and to better his fighting capabilities, I think that's a big step for Chopper's character. I also think that with the modifications, there's a different power, or a different kind of power that Chopper hasn't used yet, that he's probably going to use within these last 10 minutes of being giant. I also want to point out something I thought was kind of funny. Queen uses black coffee as a move, and I'm pretty sure the connection is like he has coffee breath, but it's a laser beam instead. And I just thought that was pretty funny. That it reminds me of Legs Benedict as far as really funny moves go. The announcement of Luffy's defeat rings out across the dome, and we get some interesting reactions. Now, the Straw Hats do not look demoralized at all. In fact, they're kind of going about their business. We have a few like, what? That's not possible. But other than that, most of the Straw Hats are just continuing their fight. The problem I see is with the rest of the Alliance, because we see like Yogoro and we see some other different names in the Alliance, and they kind of have more worried faces. Even Marco kind of has a concerned face. Normally when this announcement goes off, Luffy is the victor. You hear, Luffy beat Katakuri, Luffy beat Rob Lucci. But no, this time Kaido. And they don't just say Kaido when they say Kaido slaughtered Luffy. There's also what I feel is a slight reference to Thriller Bark, because Bao Huang gives everyone the option to join Kaido, and we have Zoro and Sanji saying, no way, not possible. And this reminds me of that moment because it's when Kuma says, give me Luffy's head and I'll let you all go. And they all shout, no way. We don't exactly see the reactions from all the Straw Hats at that moment, but they all have the same kind of mentality, so they'd all say the same thing. The end of the chapter shows us that not only has Kinemon and Okiku made it to Momo, but Kanjuro has as well. And he's dressed up as Odin again. Now for Momo and Shinobu, this is obviously weird because they haven't seen the whole illusion thing that happened before. So they're kind of like, Odin, what are you doing here? But Kiku and Kinemon already know the deal, and Kiku starts charging in to kill. Now I figured that Kiku would have some issues killing Kanjuro. I didn't necessarily think it would be this bad, but it turns out Kiku can't do it. And honestly, I started to feel bad as I was reading it, and I saw the memories kind of flow through. I was like, this really sucks. This is not cool at all. These moments really put a pin in how evil Kanjuro is, because he's stuck to this character so much. There's been not an inch of give in what he's trying to do, and I really appreciate that. Kanjuro ends up stabbing Okiku the same way he did Asura Doji, and Okiku is down for the count. This leaves Kinemon and Kanjuro, and in no hesitation, Kinemon strikes Kanjuro down, which I appreciate. Kinemon and Kanjuro have the closest relationship, and Kanjuro even mentions that essentially Kinemon was his best friend when he was playing this role, but if anyone should and could cut down Kanjuro, it'd be Kinemon. And as if things couldn't get any worse, Kaido blasts in and immediately starts swinging, no hesitation. As soon as he sees Kinemon and essentially Momo and Shinobu, he starts swinging. Kinemon tells Momo and Shinobu to leave, and he tries to defend against Kaido, but looks like he uses Ragnarok. And Luffy didn't get through that move unscathed. I don't think Kinemon's going to survive that. I'm going to doubt that it killed him, but he should at least not be mobile anymore. We see that Kinemon's swords have shattered, and we also see that Momo is kind of crying as he runs away. Now, is this because he saw Kinemon basically have his head blown off, or is it because he just knows Kinemon was attacked by Kaido? Not sure on that. We'll have to wait for the next chapters to show us. I don't think anyone necessarily died this chapter, but I think this is going to show that we might end up losing some or most of the Scabbards. We also see that Onigashima is in fact really close to Wano. We see the factories up in the distance there. So in the next few, we are going to see either Onigashima drop in the water next to Wano, or Onigashima just drop right into Wano somewhere. I thought this was a pretty decent chapter. We got unexpected lore, which I always love to see in One Piece, and we got some good fights. But you guys let me know what you thought. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.